So our first order is approval of the September 4th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I move to approve as presented.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Our second order is public input. So this is the portion of the meeting where if there's anyone in the public who'd like to speak on any matter, please come forward, state your name and address. All right, I will make a motion to close public input.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to subdivisions. Item A, we have the reserve at Mill Pond.
I'm trying to get this to cooperate with me.
Broke it.
It's on, I promise.
Oh, there it goes.
Change batteries.
Oh, you know what? I should have said it's the October 2nd Planning Commission meeting for the city of Halloween. Great.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, please proceed.
This project is proposed to contain 234 in-common townhome units on approximately 41 acres. TRC has reviewed the proposed plan, which started in September of last year. The project will be accessed through two existing stub outs located on Tortoise Drive and Turtle Creek Drive, and they will also have a stub out within the new development that will connect to the future phase of Elmhurst, which is currently in review. The project requires a minimum of 5.37 acres of open space, and there will be 8.6 acres of open space provided. In addition to subdivision plan approval, the applicant is requesting approval of 3 street names: Sol, King Solomon, and King David. And staff recommends that planning commission approval be contingent on final review and approval from TRC. The applicant, David Short, is present if you have any specific questions.
All right. Would you like to come forth and if you had anything else to add?
Jessica did a fantastic job. We've worked to provide connections to the adjacent project so that the infrastructure can be shared. These will be private roads internal. This is an in-common project, but there will be an easement granted to the adjacent project owner so that as they develop their project, it'll be able to interconnect through and sharing both water, sewer, and access to the streets. Provide interconnection on the back side of the project while we did make sure all the units are outside of the flood zone, but we did build an elevated bridge so that we could preserve the area in the back as a nature area and allow the community to still have access to it, but then protects all the residents in the surrounding communities, and also doesn't put any residents in harm's way by putting them in the flood zone. So,
Okay.
any other questions? Happy to answer. The sections of the stubs that we're connecting to were previously dedicated to the city of Halloween. And those sections all the way to the property line will be built to public road standards. So it'll be public road all the way to the existing property line, and then from there in will be in common. So
Okay. All right. Do y'all have any questions for the applicant?
No, he answered mine with the floodplain, because I know that council's made us think about building in that before,
I don't,
so.
you won't see me doing that.
Yeah.
Which is great of the applicant to be willing to do that because it was already zoned appropriately for the development he proposes. And
Right.
usually we try to catch it on the front end before annexation or rezoning, and he willingly kept those units
Yeah.
out of a flood zone.
Yeah.
That was it.
So I know that this is just a plan approval, but thinking about that existing neighborhood right there that the connections are coming through, is your drainage plan generally away from them?
So we have full submittal already in stormwater review, already twice on this one, so.
Okay.
All of the road drainage is tying back into our system that we're proposing,
Okay.
not into the existing section. It actually goes kind of level straight in and then it drops when it comes into our property.
Okay.
So it's quite we've oversized the ponds quite a bit. So it actually falls back, their drainage actually falls to us, not the other way around.
Okay.
So we've got, I don't know if that's the way to show it, if I walk up to it or not, but I don't have the fancy pointer, but there's a swale that we'll be installing along this line at the base of all of our landscaping to catch the water that's coming to us before it gets to the units in this area. So just behind the landscaping, it'll pick up into a swale and then it's piped down and comes down through here to that pond.
Okay,
So we're actually taking the water that's coming to us and then getting it around our units.
so the swale's between the units and the landscape, right? Not in the
Correct.
landscape buffer, okay.
That is correct. It's on our side of the landscape buffer.
Okay,
So
Okay.
okay.
we're definitely not sending any water away.
Yeah, I
We're
just
just
know,
making sure we accept everything that comes at us.
yeah, I know sometimes with the older neighborhoods around here, when you have a brand new development next to it, and design standards are different now, so I just hate to put anybody in a bubble, so
Well, I
that's the
think
question.
part of the reason we're able to do it is, one, our site was already lower than a lot of theirs, as well as the fact that we're in common. So we're able to put our drainage in the middle instead of having the road elevated up and then the units higher and higher.
Mhm.
We're able to keep sending the water to the road itself because it's an in common development. So it actually allows us to keep our grades a lot shallower.
Okay. And one more question, sorry. The gravel path or whatnot, is it a gravel path?
Parts of it are, but the boardwalk, the section where it goes in the back, which
Mhm.
is this area back here, is actually an elevated boardwalk.
Okay,
As it crosses, once it goes back to where the flood zone is, we actually had to build it as an elevated boardwalk. One, because there's a big ditch that's there, but two, but allow enough
Right.
water. And we had to do an analysis to make sure that the fill that we did put in back there did not impact the flood zone. So we actually did a comprehensive compensatory storage study and a flow analysis on the canal to make sure that the water would get through there, so.
okay. For staff, I guess, does the city have any, for a pathway like that, do you have standards, like it has to have edging, or, I know we're trying to make it kind of as pervious as possible, so we don't want to concrete in a
Right.
sidewalk, but,
Yeah.
and I'll just pick on Collins Jolly, because that one has a pervious path that is pretty much getting washed away, so I wanted to know if the city had a standard that we can start telling developers for that requirement.
There are certain standards in Article 7 when it comes to pathways that you put in open space. However, you want to be careful where you require them. So in a typical development, if there wasn't any flood zones affected, we would ask that it be like a dust-free surface, something that is also ADA accessible. But in this situation, and also Collins Jolly, which is a conservation subdivision, in this, because of flood zones, you do want the more pervious surface. So there are some exceptions that could be made in those types of situations. However, there are other subdivisions where it's actually a concrete sidewalk that ties from the sidewalk within the right-of-way that leads to open space, but those aren't within flood zones.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it being pervious. I just, to contain that pervious material a lot of the times, I feel like it just gets washed out. So I didn't know if
There
there was
isn't a
any.
standard now, but
Yeah.
if you have a detail that you want us to include, we're actually in the process. If we receive approval tonight, we'll be submitting the updated hopefully the final set of plans back to the city next week.
Okay,
So we can include that detail. So if you have one, or if you want to share it with staff and they can share it with us, we'll be more than glad to include that as part of our project.
or if we were to make a motion for approval, could we do contingent on TRC approval and that TRC considers pervious path edging or something like that as a comment or
Sure.
requirement?
We could definitely look into it and see what our ordinance allows us to require. I think gravel is definitely a lot more preferred than mulch or
Yeah.
just, a dirt pathway, so.
Okay,
And we're more than happy to allow on that condition. That's not,
yeah,
there's-
it's just.
there's just no
it's just a little
standardized
thing to
detail
keep
for it,
it.
so.
Yeah, well, there's also permeable surfaces that, like, Myrtle Beach State Park put in, Huntington Beach, State Park put in, as well, that will let the water through, and it looks like an asphalt type material as well. There's other things that we've gone through and talked about, where I don't want to go through and pay the stormwater fees for my parking lot, that I've looked at too. So, there's other options. I don't know what the expense is though, but I wouldn't want to go through and put a whole lot of extra money onto the developer to require that either.
I do know that a significant portion is a boardwalk
Yeah,
pathway.
the vast majority of this is in the flood area, so it's a
Yeah.
boardwalk. On the backside, it's a huge upland area that's actually really, really pretty. A lot of tall trees and not a lot of underbrush, so you can actually get around in there
I mean,
easy. So the plan is to mulch some trails in there that look pretty.
And to be fair, I'm using it as a guinea pig because I have been noticing that around the city of, pervious paths. I just want it to be contained. I like the pervious paths. I love that. I understand the flood zone and all that other kind of stuff. I just want to make sure if we're putting paths in that people can actually use them, a year down the road, they're not covered in weeds and gravel just kind of everywhere,
Yeah, there's
So that's kind
definitely
of the point
a bunch of different ways, but
Yeah.
currently
We didn't-
there isn't.
Yeah, the maintenance would be hellacious.
And that's not in the, the trail plan, comprehensive trail plan, doesn't have like,
materials. or
Materials.
anything, it's
Connectivity.
fine.
They do recommend materials, but in most cases, when you get into these sensitive areas like this, then that's pervious surfaces are going to be recommended, whether that's dirt, gravel, or things of that nature. It doesn't specify the material that you talked about, but this is something that the applicant is doing as part of their open space plan. Whether or not it will connect to any specific trail that the city, plans, I'm not sure.
But it will, internally, our project connects to the project to the right, which will have, it'll be public roads with sidewalks as well, so.
Okay. All right, y'all got anything else?
Are all the proposed lots connected? Are they gonna be subdivided?
No.
The density
this is-
seems high.
It's an in-common project, so it's a horizontal property regime condo.
Hmm?
So individuals will own their units in, but not fee simple land ownership.
Okay.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I will make a motion that we approve the in-common townhome development and associated street names contingent on TRC approval, and ask that TRC also consider a pervious paving detail or edging, something to help keep the path a little stabilized.
Second your motion.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Moving on to public hearings, rezoning requests. Number 1 is withdrawn, so moving on to number 2.
This property is within the city's utility service area and is essentially a donut hole with most of the surrounding properties already in the city limits. It's currently zoned general residential in the county. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to professional. Krill Street is comprised of single-family residential, multifamily residential, and duplex-style development, medical offices, a child care facility, which is also owned by the applicant, and a planned development known as the Mason Temple Economic Development Center, referred to as the Genesis Complex, which allows recreational, business uses, human services, educational, training programs, and senior housing programs as part of their planned development. The city's future land use map identifies this property as low-density residential. However, as you can see on the left side of your screen, it is adjacent to property that is already zoned professional. If the requested zoning is approved, any use permitted in the district would be permitted on the property in accordance with the requirements of the UDO. First reading to annex the property was approved at the September 15th council meeting, and final reading will occur concurrently with final reading of the ordinance to zone the property as professional upon annexation. And this is also a public hearing. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, does the board have any questions for Ms. Hux? It's kind of an odd little configuration, that one kind of professional down there in the middle of all that residential. Do you know how that got started? Just random fact.
I do not. I do know that the applicant owns another property that I believe he may have sought to zone professional a few years ago. I'm not sure if it's the property immediately to the left of it or a property to the right of it. And he does own another lot there. And my understanding at that time, and that was a different property, was that he was going to move the daycare facility and build a new daycare facility across the street. Whether or not the plans had changed and that's now the intention on this lot, I'm not sure. The applicant could probably address that.
Okay.
But no, I don't know. I know they've been in the city a while.
Okay. All right, is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Would you just like to state your name and your address for us?
My name is Keith Skinner. Address is 1001 Creel Street is the property in question.
Okay,
I live in Charleston.
all right.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, the family, we own a daycare street, across the street, adjacent from the existing professional property, and we wanted to keep it consistent with what we already have.
Okay.
And it's, that's a 2-acre lot, and the other lot is 4 acres, so it'd be a 6-acre professional area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any questions for the applicant? Okay,
And
thanks,
to
sir.
add, of course, that residential, single-family residential is a permitted use in the professional
Right.
district.
Right,
as well.
okay. All right, since this is a public hearing, I'll open up to the public if there's anyone who'd like to speak on this matter. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close public input.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, bringing it back to the board for any thoughts or discussions?
I think it makes sense, being as it is, historical coming in to the city as professional.
All righty. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request to rezone approximately 2.15 acres of property located at 1001 Creel Street
All right,
from GR, Horry County GR to City of Conway Professional.
All right,
I'll second.
we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Moving on to B, text amendments number 1.
All right, this is a previously deferred proposed amendment regarding the requirements and sub-districts of the Waccamaw Riverfront District. The Waccamaw Riverfront zoning district is currently split between 2 sub-districts, WRD1 and WRD2. The lighter blue that you see is WRD1. That's going to be the Waccamaw Riverfront Park, where Bonfire is, and you know, the parcels around it. And there's a few other properties on the 2nd Avenue and Laurel Street side that are also WRD1. And then the WRD2, which didn't encompass all of this acreage, but you can see now is where the old Santee Cooper smokestacks were. And then on the other side of 501 on New Road, there is some WRD2 because it's one parcel. So we couldn't split it out. It was all in there together. So when it was annexed and zoned, it was zoned WRD2 because that was the zoning district closest to it. The only distinction provided in our UDO is that in the WRD1 district, there are standards that commercial uses be on the ground floor on the front-facing facade of any new building, and that upper floors be multifamily. So there's a mixed-use requirement in WRD1. This amendment proposes to eliminate the sub-districts for the sake of clarity and instead implement a requirement that all properties adjoining the Riverwalk be required to have a mixed-use component, in that the ground level floor must be a non-residential use and that multifamily uses be permitted on upper level floors. This amendment also ensures that uses classified as solely being office-related would only be permitted as an accessory or secondary use to a permitted principal use on property across all of the WRD, rather than just WRD1 subdistrict, which furthers the city's goal to expand pedestrian activity and public access of the riverfront areas. The other amendments that are proposed are just housekeeping in nature. This amendment was advertised for a public hearing, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Alrighty. I will open it up to the public to get the public hearing portion out of the way. Sir, do you have anything to say?
Motion to close.
That's really a dangerous
We
question.
we have a
Don't get
first, I'll second the motion to close. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, too late. Bringing it back to the board. Do y'all have any questions or comments?
Is it these, we're proposing to put both of these in the same WRD designation instead of a 1,
Yes.
2?
Yes, so that way the WRD1, which has the mixed use requirements, because really it's the riverfront, the river
Right.
walk, that we want to have that pedestrian access and stimulate pedestrian activity. We want to ensure that should the river walk be extended, that those properties too would be subject to that, but not necessarily make all development that would be in WRD have to abide by the mixed use requirement.
Out of curiosity, the piece that's on the other side of 501, is that going to be split off into a separate parcel and rezoned, do you think? Because that requirement doesn't necessarily fit over there, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, luckily that will never be adjacent to the river walk, should it be extended. But because it was one parcel and wasn't split off when it got to the city, we just zoned it all the same. I do foresee that there's probably potential in the future for it to be rezoned to a district that makes more sense there. But at this time, it would just be WRD.
Okay. I see your wheels turning.
No, I'm just looking.
All right. I will make a motion that we approve the amendments to Article 2, Article 4, Article 6 regarding requirements and subdistricts of the WRD district, which is kind of doubling up on that word.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, motion carries. Moving on to number 2. Text amendments.
All right, this is amendment to Article 2, Article 13 of the UDO to establish provisions for requiring development agreements for developments that involve a zoning map amendment and/or annexation into the city of Conway. This amendment came about as a result of discussions during council's budget retreat earlier this year. And as you know, there have been an increase in the number of properties that are seeking annexation into the city that propose to contain a significant number of lots or units, more notably the Warden Station development and Brookhaven on Highway 378. Warden Station alone exceeds 1,600 acres in size. The goal of implementing such a requirement is to, at a minimum, ensure that certain improvements are done to accommodate the growth that the overall development will create, and ultimately that the growth pays for itself. While it is not common for municipalities to require a development agreement for certain developments as part of their Unified Development Ordinance, it is not prohibited to do so. Staff has spent a lot of time researching different options, specifically the threshold for requiring a development agreement. Development agreements are a contract between two parties, the developer or owner and the municipality in which the development is proposed, so they must be voluntary and the terms must be agreed upon. Development agreements are typically reserved for developments involving large tracts of land, and the minimum acreage for a development agreement is 25 acres of upland per state law. The threshold that's being proposed in this amendment is 150 lots or units, or the minimum of 25 acres of uplands. The properties that the requirement for a development agreement would be applicable to are those in which annexation is requested, that a residential zoning is proposed, or those already in the city limits that are seeking to rezone to a district that either permits residential uses or that increases the density in residential. We would not be able to enforce such an agreement on property already in the city and already zoned for residential development because those properties already have an entitlement to develop under current zoning, provided all other conditions of development are met. While staff supports the requirement of a development agreement be implemented into the UDO, what gets tricky is if there is a threshold identified with no acreage, then a simple loophole would be for developers to propose one lot or one unit less than what the threshold identifies. 150 is what's currently proposed. Once the property is annexed and zoned, the opportunity for a development agreement is almost certainly gone, so requiring it as a condition of annexation and zoning would be the best option. So you add the acreage in of 25 acres of upland requirement as well. So if 150 lots or units are proposed, or the parcel in question contains 25 or more acres of upland, the trigger is then met. The downside to this is that as the city moves further into more rural areas where there is more farmland, and annexation may be required even if one house is being built on 100 acres, because the parcel reaches that 25-acre threshold, they too would be required to enter into a development agreement. As such, staff wanted to propose another option for Planning Commission to consider. Currently, what the ordinance states, we define it in Article 2, the definitions article, and then in Article 13, we would add a development agreement section, and Section B is applicability. So instead of it being applicable to any request for annexation of property into the city of Conway in which, upon annexation and rezoning, would permit residential uses, or 2, any request to amend the city of Conway zoning map for a property for a zoning district that permits residential units or lots and proposes to contain 150 or more residential lots or units, or involves 25 acres or more of uplands. You could instead state something as simple that says, City Council, as a condition of annexation and or rezoning of a property, may require the property owner and or developer to enter into a development agreement for any development, whether residential or non-residential, when it is determined that such an agreement is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Conway. All other sections of the proposed ordinance would remain, including a definition, the purpose, the procedure, and the relationship to zoning decisions. However, that sentence that I just read would leave the decision on whether or not a development agreement would be necessary up to the full discretion of City Council, and on a case-by-case basis, rather than a blanket threshold that could subject a landowner to a development agreement simply by having 25 acres of upland and annexing into the city. But this too is a public hearing, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, I will start by opening it up to the public. If there's anyone who would like to say anything in this matter. Sure. All right, I will make a motion to close public input.
Second.
All right, we got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. What is our highest density, like allowed, like units per acre?
You're saying, like, let's just say for single family?
Well, I guess where I'm going is, so 25 acres of uplands is the threshold,
Mhm.
which,
Oh, that's,
whatever,
yeah.
go ahead. So
Well,
I'm trying to think of how many units on
It's
25.
lots or units.
Well, yeah,
So you could do multifamily.
that's where I'm going.
And it's form-based, so you're not gonna have, like, if you've got 10 acres, you can only have 100 units. It's if you meet the open space, the parking requirements, and and the height limitations, setbacks, that would dictate how many units you could have.
Are you getting toward the number of 25, and like why 25?
Well, 25 is by law, I think.
Okay.
That's required,
The
is
minimum.
it has to be at least 25 acres of upland to
Right.
be able to have a development agreement. I was more wondering where the 150 comes into play, like what is the, because that's what, six units per acre if you just divide it out easy. Is that just, okay.
That was just the number that was
threshold.
discussed, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you had, just to give a threshold that, you could easily get 150 units on 25 acres, especially if you do multifamily. And considering in some locations, the height limit is 65 feet for multifamily, you can imagine that there would be hundreds of units they could get.
So I'm wondering, I guess, like to protect the guy that goes out there and wants to build 1 or 2 houses on 25 acres or whatnot. I mean, if we say it has to be, say, like 100 units and 25 upland acres to be able to to enter into a development, but I don't know what that right number is. I'm just throwing 100 out or 150.
Right.
I feel like we had something else where we were just throwing numbers out at one time,
Yeah.
like months ago. Because I like, okay, so my thought is development agreement would only apply to cities being annexed, or properties being annexed into the city. So I like that we would make it a requirement to have a development agreement. Because I think, you know, as the city continues to grow, and we already have the whole, like, traffic and, you know, all that other kind of stuff, and, you know, we have a parks master plan on our agenda tonight, so to be able to kind of fund and not put the burden so much on the existing taxpayer base, I like the idea of requiring development agreements as the city
Well,
grows.
And also assure that the development's gonna be finished, that they go through and start, because there's some of them that'll go defunct,
Yeah.
especially if the market turns.
I just don't, so that's where I'm leaning, like, I like that it's required rather than it's a choice for council. I mean, we could rely on council to make the right decision, obviously. But then I don't know what the threshold of, like, the verbiage, because I see that position too.
Yeah, and it's probably, you know, if you take an average size of a subdivision, you know, 150 lots or units is kind of in the middle, you know, of what we see. Just thinking, you know, some are like 194. I don't remember, you had 200 and something, but those are townhome in common units. Some of them might only be 60 units. We have some that's 600 units, that's in a PD. So I think just trying to find like a mean or an average of what the lots were is, you know, likely why 150 was chosen. But it doesn't have to be 150. There's nothing that says that that's what it has to be. That was just something that was discussed amongst council at budget retreat.
But how complicated do we want to make this for you all to police too?
It wouldn't be difficult for us to police, because if that's what the ordinance says, that's what the ordinance says. We don't have a choice. If the ordinance, like right now, it says a development agreement shall be required as a condition of approval for any request for annexation in which residential uses would be proposed, any request to amend the official zoning map in which, you know, residential unit uses would be permitted, and 3 proposes to contain 150 or more residential lots or units. So 1 and 2 is an or situation. So, you know, it's either annexation and zoning or just rezoning. And then number 3 is the or, proposes to contain 150 or more residential lots or units, or it involves 25 acres of uplands. And that may have been because you might have a situation where it's 25 acres and maybe 100 units are proposed, but there might be some things that might need to be improved significantly depending on where it's located.
See, that one to me is what I had heartburn over, because so 150 units or 25 acres? So what if you get 150 units on 20 acres? Then you can't do it, so the or doesn't make sense in that statement.
Yeah, so that, I think, and maybe I have it worded wrong, but it could be 150 lots or units on 1,000 acres.
But if you say
or it could be 100 units on, you know, 25 acres.
I think if you reverse them almost, like 25 acres, well, but and requires it being both
That's right.
situations.
That's the
So
reason why, yeah.
25 acres, minimum 25 acres or 100, it can't be, I don't think it could be or. Because by or, you're saying if you have 150 units, you can get a development agreement, no matter what the acreage is. But
We might
anyways.
be able to just state in there, any development, any proposed development or a development agreement shall be required as a condition of approval for, and list those things, any proposed development that meets the minimum threshold for a development agreement, for the acreage to have a development agreement,
Yeah.
and make that separate.
Just as an example, maybe to help you with wordage, there's a requirement in flood zones. if there's an AN number flood zone, and they do use the word or, it's 50 lots or 5 acres. So if at any point in time there's an AN number flood zone on a parcel that is projected to be developed or proposed to be developed, if there's 50 lots or there are 5 acres or more contained on that property, then the applicant will be required to do a flood study. So that's the terminology that FEMA also uses for the or, so that if you put and, you don't have someone who says, well, I have 4.99 acres, I don't have 5. So it don't meet the requirement. So it's just kind of maybe to help understand the wordage of why it would be or it could be or.
Yeah, and I
instead
know
of
it sounds
and.
awkward, but think about it this way. Let's say you've got a property that's 100 acres and they're in the county. We only require the annexation as a condition of receiving city services. So let's say they decide, well, I can split up to 10 times in the county before it's a major. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this 100 acres and I'm gonna make it 24 acres or 24.5 acres. And guess what? I don't meet the minimum uplands for a development agreement. So I can do 250 units on 24.5 acres. And so I think maybe that might be the reason why.
But legally, doesn't it have to be 25? So how,
It
can't,
does.
so you can't do just a total number of units, I guess is where I'm getting at. It can't
We
be an
could.
or.
Yeah, we could. I think it's just that if you don't wanna boxing them into 150, when there could be situations where it's less than 150 on 25 or more acres, I think was why. But staff had, if you would prefer to just leave it, because 25 is the state law, you have to have 25, not just 25 acres, it has to be 25 acres of upland. And that's for the minimum years for a development agreement.
Right.
So if you would prefer to just leave off the 25 acres, because that is by state law, the minimum acreage required.
Is there any kind of special exception that, or it's the wrong wording for special exception because I know that's another section, but any kind of, like, council may have,
Like the right
Like
to
zo-
waive or appeal or.
yeah, like zoning board of appeals or something, so that guy coming in with 200 acres and all he wants to build is one house, is there any kind of way to, if we make it a requirement period at 25 acres and not have any units, have like an appeal or
Well, anything in the
anything?
ordinance is appealable. So there has to be a mechanism to request, an appeal or relief from the requirements, so yes. But ultimately, the goal is not to create hardships
Right.
by way of adopting
Right.
an ordinance. I know that sometimes that can't be avoided, but that is ultimately our goal, is to improve situations and not create
Right.
hardships.
So really the easiest thing is to give council the power to ask for it if they want to, would be the easiest thing.
Well,
but-
I think we also need to trigger something, because I think if we just give we just say anything subject to it, I don't think that creates a lot of clarity for like a developer. I think that if we found a good, like a number, and I don't know what that number is, whatever, the city wants, I think is probably a good number, but I think we also need to trigger an appeal, like there has to be a way for somebody to have relief and have a common sense reading of the, and I don't know, is there anything, do we ever list anything here within the Article 13 that would say subject to an appeal or
Well, I mean,
or something?
they could definitely appeal that, or, to
Oh.
the Board of Zoning Appeals, the requirement to have, the acreage, they would, could ask that. I honestly would not recommend that be the only way. What I would recommend, and honestly, it's very hard to find, it was very hard for staff to find anywhere. I think, maybe it's the town or the city of Tega Cay in South Carolina. Any development, you have to have, any development, of course, meeting the minimum acre, you have to have a development agreement, or they have,
It's North Myrtle Beach.
is it North Carolina?
Any annexation in North Myrtle Beach over 25 acres requires a development agreement with payment of a fee that goes towards public parking at the beach. I know it's not public input,
Yeah.
just somebody with experience in that, that's their requirement.
I was gonna say that, but I wasn't exactly sure, but it seemed like I had heard that North Myrtle Beach, is that, and that's not, that's kind of
It's
newer.
not written,
Oh,
it's not written anywhere, it is just a requirement, because as tied to a ordinance that goes through a rezoning process, in the end, council always has the final say to waive a requirement. So it doesn't, in that aspect, even if you put it in here, council doesn't have to sign a development agreement.
True.
You're tying your hands if you make that requirement.
True.
And there is something we did add, you know, the relationship to zoning. Nothing in this section shall be construed to create an entitlement to rezoning or annexation. And the requirement for a development agreement is a procedural condition and does not limit the city council's legislative discretion to approve or deny any zoning map amendment or annexation request in accordance with applicable.
Okay, so that's your ability to.
That's right, way to go. I mean, and we're more concerned with the number of units than the amount of acreage.
And you know, I kind of figured going into this that the number of lots or units was kind of going to be the biggest issue, and it was for staff too. I mean, what number do you assign? You don't want it to be too little to where at that point it's not even worth it to a developer to even seek to develop property, but you don't want it to be, you know, too low either to where people are able to develop and avoiding that requirement, because you do want growth to pay for itself. You do want to ensure that certain things are adhered to, that there are certain triggers, you know, for certain requirements to be done. And we don't have impact fees. So, and even those may not be or may not work as well as what the city has done in the past with development agreements for those larger subdivisions. So you could, there's no rush on this. Staff could try to look outside of South Carolina. I try not to do that because laws are different everywhere. But we could look and see what other places may have triggers for development agreements. But
Do we have any annexation requests coming up? Any large annexation requests coming up?
not that I'm, the only one coming up you've already considered, as far as any brand new ones. I mean, of course, we meet with people often.
Your
was just thinking that-
question on the and or proposes to contain 150 or more residential lots and or units, or involves 25 acres or more of uplands.
It has to be 25 acres, that's why I said the.
Yeah,
or
that's the
doesn't work.
threshold.
Yeah, it can't be 150 units or 25 acres, is the way I'm reading it.
No, it is.
I know, but it can't be 150.
It's either, they either have 150 units or it's 25 acres.
But what if I put 150 units on 10 acres?
It's an or still, so the
It has to
150.
be by
Then you
law
couldn't
25,
You couldn't have a development agreement.
right?
Okay.
But now we could if we wrote it this way.
But legally you can't
No,
unless it's
because the
25.
25 acres
That's my
is that
problem with the
threshold.
or.
Right.
Sorry.
We have to make sure it's in accordance with state law. That's the
So
most
we
important
can't,
thing.
so state laws,
Mm-mm.
That
state
we
law we
can't preempt
cannot
that.
do.
That's what takes
Yeah.
precedent. We can be
Yeah.
more restrictive, we cannot be less
So
restrictive.
more
than what-
restrictive would be requiring a development agreement for less than 25 acres. That would be
We
more
would,
restrictive.
that would be
So
illegal.
you're saying,
That would be
Okay.
illegal.
So that's, that's what I'm saying, it'd be
150
more
acres on
restrictive.
10, or
The
150
intent
units on
behind the
10.
25 acre minimum is to
You can't
ensure
require
that residential development, that the annexation and or rezoning is also caught with
Gotcha.
that 25 acres. So you don't have someone that's just, well, I'm doing residential development, I've got 50 acres, you know, but I'm only gonna do 149 lots. So
I was
I'm not
slow to
gonna-
the
you know
draw
what I
on what
mean?
you were saying, but I finally think I caught up. So
Just-
I think we, like, maybe it's say for acreage more than 25, for lots more than 20, for annexations of more than 25 acres, which will have in excess of X number. We put out the whatever number lots, a development agreement will be required. And so like, the 25 acres is the trigger, right? So we can't require a development agreement for less than 25 acres.
That's
So,
correct.
Right.
so for development, 25 acres or larger, which would include at, proposed X number of units, then we want a development agreement. Is that
Right.
right?
That's what we're trying to get at, yeah, that's why I say if you
Just
reverse
trying to
those.
find that wording that,
So like,
you know.
yeah, I would put the 25 acres first.
Yeah. if-
And then whatever the number, and I think that's gotta be like,
So you're saying 25 acres width?
Yes, the proposed, it would require 25 acres with or in addition to 150 proposed lots would sound better than
Yeah.
having the or before.
Yeah, because that protects that person that comes out and has 200 acres and wants 10 lots.
So
Right.
it's
And then
25 acres with
A
X number of
minimum
lots.
Yeah,
Yes.
proposed.
so,
And maybe we drop the threshold to like 100 and then, I don't know what the number is.
That's where I'm
Because
at.
I'm not a developer, I don't know what the limitations of like a financial, I don't even know like what the net result of a development agreement is. Like we don't, like, they're not all the same,
Right. Well,
right?
you
So
have-
some you require, roads widening and turn lanes and stop and traffic surveys and,
I'm not a developer and I'm not an engineer, but if you have 100 acres, or have 25 acres and you wanna do 100 units, and David could definitely speak to this better than me, you gotta take about 20%
All
out.
the public input is closed. If you want to have
That's
open
true.
discussion, I'm more than happy to provide input. One of the other things that you have to keep in mind is that development, that the timeframe.
would you like to state your name, please,
My
so
name
for
is
the record?
David Burr with Diamond Shores.
Thank you.
Also former planning director for Horry County and general land use law expert. So,
Oh, God.
as testified by the court, most recently, a week ago. The thing about development agreements is that they're also limited in time frame. So based on the size, it limits how many years it can be in effect. And you have to take that into account, the fact that on a project, typical, how long it takes to develop. So typically between rezoning and the time you actually get your permits is at least a year. And then you have to take into account how many units can actually be used up within that time frame. So a typical development is between 50 to 75 lots that can be built on in a year at max, or as low as 25. So you're going to use those up. And also keep in mind that a typical single-family development is actually less than 4 units an acre. Even in the city with smaller lot sizes, it's generally 4 units or less an acre. So on a 25-acre project, you're only dealing with 100 lots max. So if you take that into account, you're not, and you've got 5 years on a 25-lot development, or 25-acre development to get it done. That's a year in, 2 years of getting units out after that, so that's 3 years of that, and you're at 120 maybe, but you can't even get that in a typical single family. You'd have to be at 30 or 40 acres before you got to that size. So,
Yeah, and it's 25 acres of upland, so,
Mhm.
you could be dealing with a situation where half of it is in a wetland or in a flood zone. So it could be, hundreds of acres, but the upland acreage is what you would have to go by. And the density could be greater, in those situations where you have like cluster style, development. And also development agreements can be extended. There's limitations to that, but they could be extended.
yeah, so those are just things to keep in mind. Those are extension clauses that you could put in there.
so
and
the
density
development
laws.
agreement is typically just for 5 years, and that's sort of a
No,
static.
that's based on size, so 25 is for 5 years.
I think it's in the.
25
if you
to
have it, I
250
think it's
acres
in
is
there.
5 years, 20,
Okay, it's right here.
yeah, there's a chart.
Yep.
And that comes directly out of state law.
Right.
So that's not a local
That's right.
decision.
How many houses can go on 25 acres, did you say?
It depends, typically.
On the lot
you're-
size?
Even
40
if it's
units
all
per acre.
uplands, by the time you put your ponds and stuff in, it's about 4.
And that's for single family though, right? Not multifamily?
That's for single family.
Yeah.
Multifamily is a whole different concept, especially if you're going 4 stories high.
But if we're going low threshold, then that 150 number should at least be 100? Is that what we're thinking?
That's,
At least? See, okay, my other part is, what triggers a traffic study? How many units? Or or is that a?
There's no trigger.
There's no
It's
trigger.
just
Okay.
the discretion of the engineer.
But
So-
a development agreement typically does require, we could, TRC right now, we wrote in the ordinance, staff and council adopted, that TRC has the discretion to require a traffic impact analysis at any point in which it feels that it is necessary.
And then in
Okay,
the
and-
unincorporated jurisdictions, it's 200 ADTs or trips a day for a right turn lane and 500 for a left turn lane, which is very similar to what SUDOT requires.
And what is the ADT count for a single family?
10
10,
is
okay.
what
So it's
ITE
20.
says, and locally in Horry County, it's about 7.5 to 8.
Do you have any additional? Okay, you got it. Okay. All right, so that's, all right.
ITE certified truck.
I mean, I love the concept of requiring
I
a
do too.
development agreement more often than we get. So I think that's a great, I think that direction is the
Yeah.
way we want to be, because I think that protects the citizens, I think it protects the city, and I think it adds clarity, and it would increase the quality of the product of what we're getting, and I think overall, I think it's a great plan, like
Mhm.
to do this. I think finding the thresholds is the,
And now keep in mind, as the developer part, is that there's two parts to it. One is most developers are okay with development agreements because it means that the community is still accepting development. But two, for those that are not really traditional developers and are rezoning and doing something small, there is an additional cost because there's usually a very high-priced attorney involved in writing those development
and I
agreements.
ask what the drawdowns to,
That's the
like-
most expensive part of it, is not actually the money that you pay as part of the development. It's actually the upfront cost that you're paying to the attorney to do the development agreement and attend all the meetings with the jurisdiction.
That's fair.
And also, development agreements do lock in the development standards that are in place. So
Right.
essentially, when you have a development agreement, whatever the ordinance is at that time, unless there's, exceptions carved out within the development agreement, which we've done, we've asked developers that have done development agreements that you adhere to the stormwater requirements that are in effect at that time of plan review, the tree preservation ordinance in effect at the time of plan review, design standards that are in place, but that doesn't mean there won't be other things in the ordinance that are not part of that development agreement that could change over time, and at least for the time frame of 10 years or 20 years, however long it may be, they're essentially locked into those development standards.
And it requires staff to keep track of those standards for historical purposes for the next 5, 10, 20 years.
And technically, Planning Commission is supposed to review all development agreements at least once over a 12-month period.
So it creates more work for you.
I mean, we all got so much free time, Like,
Yeah, I realize this is a tough one, and that's why it's taken staff a while. We've been working on it since last year, but really been working on it since January, February of this year, just trying to find the perfect language, trying to find the right threshold, but not being overly burdensome to somebody that is wanting to do a small subdivision, or to that person that's wanting to annex that doesn't want to do a major subdivision, but does have a lot of acreage. But also giving council leeway if you have a major development that is commercial and not residential at all, but that, would cause those high ADTs, or, would need to trigger other improvements, whether, on-site, off-site, that they do have that option as well, and that is carved in here. But I will defer to you on what you think is the appropriate number and threshold. That's why
I have
we
one more
you.
question. Okay, so in the county, because this is where all the annexations are coming from, is the county. So a major subdivision is 10 or more lots, right?
Any 10 or more parcel splits in a 10-year period. So you could split 10 times in 10 years, and then after 10 years, you could.
But what I'm saying is, if you were coming into, if you were developing, if you had a piece of land and you're developing in the county, if you have 11 lots on that, if you want 11 lots, then that's gonna trigger a major subdivision, which is like a full-blown plan, permitting, stormwater, everything, right?
Depending on what their requirements are, yes, it would be
I see where you're
anything
going.
more than 10 would require and I believe the parent parcel is part of that number.
It counts
But
towards
yes.
it, yeah.
But
So, but I guess my point is 10 is the threshold that the county has for a major or a minor development to require full-blown permitting, drawing, stormwater, everything. So I think if everybody is annexing from the county, like if you have that same piece of land, you can do 10 lots in the county for this, or you can come in the city and do more, but I mean, is that a good threat? I'm not saying 10,
Are you
but is that a
thinking
better threshold for
25
a
and 10?
development agreement? You know, if it to match the county's major versus minor,
So you're
development.
thinking 25 and 10?
25 acres and more than 10 lots.
are you saying that, not necessarily the
units.
number of lots, but you're saying that if the density that's being requested upon annexation is greater than the density that could be achieved under the zoning that it's currently in the county? Because you could, I mean, have, 10 lots and it be, SF 40, which is 40,000 square foot, so basically an acre. So then if you do go by that, then pretty much if they wanted to do more than one per acre, they would need to have a development agreement if the property is more than 25 acres of upland. So that would be tricky too. And David pointed out, and those would be, the 10 is if it's less than 5 acres. I believe there's some exception for greater than 5 acres or greater.
I'm stumped, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. Anybody else wants to throw some thoughts out there?
I'm tending to go this direction. I think we like the direction here, but I think maybe we could take the thoughts that have bounced around here and try to rewrite, the 25 acres and how many units. And I don't know if there's the research question of looking for other towns of what, like in South Carolina, that would do that.
Well, and the issue is, as David pointed out, is that while there are some municipalities that just require development agreements, it's not actually within their UDO.
Right.
So they just require it, but it's not in their UDO, which gives
we
them
definitely
complete discretion. Because and if you write it in here, you take the discretion away because they shall have a development
Right.
agreement, whereas in North Myrtle Beach,
Well, I like the shall have. I like that we're giving, here's the standard. We cross that, we'll do it, we'll trigger the development agreement. If they want to apply for relief, they can, so, well, I'm really not, I'm only building.
we might be able to, find some language that maybe carves out that exception a little bit better, so that we don't catch those people that it's not intended to catch, and maybe present some different options for you to look at other than 150. Because again, I know this is a tough one, and it's hard when it's just not something that's written. It's not a common thing to be included in a unified development ordinance. Most places just lean on state law. It's already there. It's in state law. You have the right now. It has to be agreed upon. The terms have to be agreed upon. This kind of says that no, you're going to have a development agreement. We can agree upon the terms of the development agreement, but the option to have a development agreement is taken off the table if you put it in here. But we can probably try to come up with some language and see if it works.
Is there a
better.
fee that a developer pays to enter into a development agreement?
There was not until this year. This year, the budget that was adopted does require a setup fee for a development agreement. I believe it is $1,000 for us because, Warden Station, Brookhaven, that involved a lot of staff time. I probably looked at, I kid you not, 25 different versions of Warden Station over a 8 to 10 month period. Thousands of pages. of
Right,
in
and a lot
plans.
and a lot of time, you know,
Mhm.
and does that go through an attorney review on our side? Do we have, like, somebody who's, I mean,
Me. Yep.
See, lots of free time.
That's why it took
Sorry.
so long, because, you know,
Alright.
you have to look, you have to cross all your Ts and dot all your Is and make sure that, you know, this version that's adopted, not only is it right, but that all the changes that was discussed by planning commission, by staff, by city council, that all of those changes have also been incorporated, and you know, attorneys are not the best, I don't even know what the right term is. They're not as proper when it comes to their ability to write documents. There's a lot of typos that go into it. Some of it may, you know, I'm sure it was inadvertently done, but you have to make sure that all of those changes are done, because just missing one little thing or one little sentence varying slightly could mean all the difference in the world on whether or not something that was intended to be adopted, that you wanted to be done, it could change that requirement to where it isn't required anymore. So we have to be very careful, and that's why we implemented and council adopted a fee for staff for the planning department, so that we are not doing all of that and that the public's not being compensated.
I agree with Greg that we do need to, I would prefer to have the developmental agreement, because I feel like that a lot of people, you know, think that there's the perception that we don't want to make it more difficult for developers, because, you know, they'll get mad because they can't develop, you know, it's more, it costs them more to develop. But I think everybody in Conway has just about reached the development
Well, I think
limit.
if everybody wants to come here, we should ask for.
That's what I'm saying, I think we need to be more strict.
Can we break it down by zoning? Like, okay, for instance, low density residential, 1 to 4 units per acre, total units on 25 acres, you're looking 25 to 100. So, on 25 acres, 25 plus units, trigger there. Medium, density residential, trigger it at 125 plus units, and then high density residential trigger at 275 plus units.
So are you saying triggering it to a zoning district that's being requested, depending on the zoning district? Because the issue is that, like in R3, for example, you could do single family, you could do duplexes, townhomes, or multifamily. So you almost need to know what the actual plan is ahead of time. So in R1, you have a certain requirement, but if they do a conservation subdivision, they could have different lot sizes, and they can even do duplexes as part of a conservation subdivision. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I would obviously need to, if that's the route you wanted to take, I would like
I mean,
to
I'm
have
just
time to look into
Throwing out
that.
other options, I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think we need it.
A lot of people have to request annexation to come into the city, even though it's a residential development, it's a large residential development. In order for them to get water and sewer services, they have to request annexation. And because the city's requirements as far as the development itself go, they are more stringent. However, the upside to the developer is that, one, the city doesn't have impact fees. 2, you usually get more density, because 9 times out of 10, in order for them to get the density they want, they got to go through the rezoning and public hearing process. And county council is not as generous lately with giving rezoning or approving rezoning requests. So that's a lot of why people want to come into the city. I do know that there is discussion with people on 701 South that are not in our service area that ask all the time, what do I got to do to get annexed into the city? So those situations definitely should trigger a development agreement, for sure. But we definitely do agree with the development agreement requirement. It's just trying to find that happy median that is not going to be overly burdensome for some, but is going to be proper, and ensures that growth is paying for itself for other developments.
All right, so do we want to potentially defer this and have staff do more research? Is that
I think
what
that's
we're
probably the
thinking?
wise course. I'm tempted to just say 100 is the number and go with it, but I don't know if we have that enough information, so
See, I'm closer to 10.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying, like, I don't know. I saw him squirm when you said 10, but.
Well, I'm just, the major development in the county, so
And,
you're
No.
and the
spending all
bottom
that
line,
anyways.
yeah, and the bottom line is that regardless of the number, it has to be something that both parties agree on. So this is just the requirement for it to have a development agreement. The terms of the development agreement.
Right, there
It's
could
still
be no terms
contractual.
other than, yes.
Well, you
let's
have
go
to have
fund-
minimum
Right.
terms, obviously, but
Right.
those terms would be agreed upon between city council and the applicant or the property owner. But we could definitely look at some other options.
Is this gonna create an expense for the city of Conway?
What do you mean, as if it's adopted? Yeah.
Has there been any sort of cost analysis on how much it would cost, like what it would do to?
Well, what you have to do is, when I think of that, I think of the cost of requiring a development agreement for new development that is going to have a burden on the general public. And then I think about what that cost is not having a development agreement.
Sure.
So what's greater?
Yeah.
At least with the development agreement, while it might be more work for the city staff up front, at least you know that you are implementing things that for the duration of the development agreement, and in theory, that it would, cover the entire length of the development process, that at least you have put things in an agreement that guarantees that certain things will be done, including enhancement fees, that you do have those park facilities, police, just the simple things like
Right.
cameras being required at certain entrances. And I know developers are doing a lot more now, in some regard than they have done in the past. But the cost to not have it versus the cost of having it, and ensuring that the cost of development is lessened by the fact that there is a development agreement. To me, having the development agreement makes more sense.
I think the stricter we make it, the more burdensome it's gonna be for staff, but we don't need to make it loose to the point where this is now the Wild West.
Yeah,
And developers
it's
go
mean-
crazy.
And it's meaningless.
Based
Staff's-
off your number of four, fee and simple lots, right, on an acre, I presume, 100 seems reasonable. If we want to be more conservative, we could push it, or if we want to be more lenient towards developers, we can push it to 150, we can push it to 125. But I think it'd be a great thing if you want to defer it for simply rewording to put 25 ahead, 25 acre lot ahead, because I think that makes a lot of sense, to not get mixed up. So we'll go ahead and put the state regulations before everything, and then our rules and subjugations after. So, the cart's not before the horse.
Right.
This has to be done to begin with. It has to be 25 acres of uplands, right? And then I think 150 was pretty generous on both sides. But I mean, lowering it to 100, like you mentioned, Greg, that sounds like a phenomenal idea too.
It may be as
10
simple as stating under.
10's up there, but by all means, like, you
Yeah.
need to 75, there's definitely a middle ground to be found.
Maybe in the
But-
middle at 60. No, I'm kidding.
It could be as simple under applicability where it says a development agreement shall be required as a condition of approval for, and then you list those three. It may be saying that a development agreement shall be required for properties 25 or more acres as a condition of approval, or containing 25 or more acres as a condition of approval for, and then list the three standards below that. And that might solve the
Let's put
issue.
the 25
Exactly.
upland acres in the
And
top part,
Yeah.
Yeah,
not in the.
so
yeah.
that's, they have to hit that, because it's a state reg, there's no way around that. And then everything after that is gonna be our subjugations, which are You know, if
I
we want to
think I
do
like that idea.
100 lots, if we want to do so on and so forth.
Do we want to defer this, or do we want to make a motion with those revisions then?
What
you
our
guys-
revision is going to be if we make a motion. To put it,
Because-
so we'll put 25 at the top
Mhm.
and then
Whatever number.
reduce it. We could
everybody's
reduce it by
comfortable.
50 and bring it to 100 lots.
Are you guys comfortable with 100?
I can be convinced, I guess.
We don't want to overburden the developers, but we want a common sense.
Exactly.
And I think staff has thought about this.
And I
for a
think
long
we,
time,
and I
so
think we
yeah.
need to trigger it. I mean, I think it needs to be triggered, and I don't know if we, what else is coming up, but I think it'd be good to have it like in the holster, sort of ready to go, like when the next development hits, that could be a little, tricky,
And I almost think that by Mr. Anderson's point, if you put the 25 acre minimum up front and you say that a development agreement shall be required for properties consisting of 25 or more acres of uplands as a condition of approval for, and then you list the three, then it almost prevents the loophole or the error with the person that wants to annex his 50-acre farm and build one house. Because you have to want to annex for residential uses, request to rezone for residential uses, and you have to propose 100 or 150 lots. So all, those have to be met.
Does the development agreement, would this trigger if somebody had already annexed in and had 100 acres right now?
No.
Maybe
Do we have
after
any
that.
protections for that sort of I don't know if we've had any circumstances of large lots that are already within the city limits that are already designated residential, that
They could voluntarily do a development agreement, but that's the issue.
there's
is
nobody's
You
gonna.
can't make them do a development agreement. If they've already got the zoning that they need to develop the property, they
Okay.
don't have
So
to
we're just
do
future
one.
planning, we're just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is to, yeah.
I think it's wise for a future to have that, especially with the amount of acreage that's out beyond the city limits that are gonna wanna come in. And I think,
Okay,
I think
so
maybe we make a motion with the changes that we have made, and maybe I'll leave it to you, Thomas, to say the
Wait,
right
how to
words.
word
can you hear me out one more time about the
Okay.
100? Okay, if the average is 4 per acre, so what happens to the guy that comes in at 99? So that's, I think, why I'm maybe like 90 instead of 100, you know what I'm saying?
What happens to the guy that comes in at 89?
I mean,
But you
yeah,
said 4
you
units
can-
per acre is the average. That's where I'm struggling, is because
So
like if I was a
4
developer, I'd be like,
so-
oh yeah,
Well,
let's just
that, I
get one
mean,
less.
but you're always going to go through and have that one developer. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
We can't stop
there's not gonna be
everybody.
a fix-all for everything. You're gonna have to go through and set the benchmark and then just be happy with it.
That's like, can we rely on the goodness of humanity to like, can we have a little bit of ethics and morals here and not just go,
That's
I'm
a-
gonna go
that's
99 and run out of
that's
here?
a high
Got through the
That's why
assumption.
the or was put in conjunction with, in number 3. I think that's why it was put like that, was because of those exact situations.
All right.
What do you think the right number would be?
Y'all, I think if we nickel and dime developers, we're gonna be hurting the city. I really do.
It's definitely a balance, but
Well, my whole thing is impact fees in the county, if you're gonna stay in the county, or development agreement in the city, and you get a better product in the city. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of my whole thing about lowering the number too. Is you don't have to pay impact fees in the city, but we're just asking for a development agreement. You gotta pay impact fees in the county, so what's,
I mean,
What's
from
the
the
difference?
developer's, I mean, you're right, if the grass is wildly greener
Yeah.
in the city of Conway, then we're gonna go make our money in the city of Conway, and we'll do it that way. And I think it'd be wise
I think it's fair, because that's what it says.
for us to have more jurisdiction over the planning of it. We also don't want people running away and doing what they,
but
and then,
council still has the opportunity to say, no, we don't think it's required here.
Mhm.
No matter what, we could say 2, and council could be like, that's dumb.
I'm hearing
Yeah.
that 50 is a good number, so.
All right, let's do 50.
50 sounds great.
Does 50 work?
I'm fine with 50.
I mean,
I'm
50
sorry,
on,
y'all.
so
This is like
50,
the longest
no,
ever.
I'm just trying to think, 50 on 25 acres, it's a half acre lot, but it's still 50 houses that will impact a community.
So 10 ADTs per house, that's 500 trips.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
And I also want to point this out because I know that the burden, putting the burden on the developer. This, again, is the requirement to have a development agreement. The terms, whether that's the enhancement fees, the requirements for park, the requirements for improvements, all of which would still be required to some degree per our ordinances, those are all terms that will be agreed upon between the developer and city council. So no matter what the number is, it doesn't mean that this person who has a development agreement is gonna be subject to the same
Right.
requirements as somebody else who may have 10 times more lots than another developer. So I don't want, you to think or feel that whatever the requirements are, it's gonna be applicable the same way for every developer. There's minimum standards within a development agreement that you have to have, but the terms of that agreement can vary between developments.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm satisfied with 50, you guys. Sorry.
all right, Thomas, have at it.
Oh, joy.
What she said.
Yeah, pretty much. Take everything she
According to the
just summed
record
up.
that we talked about.
Great. So I'll make a motion to approve, I'd make a motion to, approve the text amendments for Article 2, definitions, and Article 13, administrative agencies and functions of the City of Conway UDO, with the recommended revisions herein stated.
Would you like me to word it? I'm thinking of the wording directly under applicability. A development agreement shall be required as a condition of approval for. Would you like me to, should I start it and say for properties containing 25 acres or more of uplands,
Yep.
a development
Yes.
agreement
That's
shall
what we
be
have to say.
required.
There you go.
And change the lot.
And change the lot sizes, the lot number to 50.
50.
All right, we have a first.
Man,
Do we have
I
a
will-
second?
I will gladly second.
Whatever that was.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Good job, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed that because I'm a nerd, but I have to recuse myself, so I'm going to hand it over to whoever you would like to elect as chair.
All right.
Yeah.
Who wants to have fun with Hammer?
Madam- we
I
do?
have to recuse myself, right? No?
Oh, yeah, this one's to be
Yes.
deferred. I'm sorry. This
Yeah.
one's to be deferred.
Thank you all.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. All right, this master plan is similar to what planning commission has adopted as part of amendments to the, oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, y'all need to elect somebody to be chair.
Okay, so we gotta, we gotta elect a chair to take the place of Miss Jessica for her recusing and running out the door very rapidly.
I do believe you're up.
Because she doesn't want to read this long story.
You're good for it?
So I do
All
believe
right,
you're
so
vice chair.
there's a
I
first.
second.
Good, all right,
All those in
I'll make a motion
favor?
to nominate George.
all right.
All right.
Do we vote unanimously, George? Okay.
Okay, Miss Jessica,
Is
you
that
can read the
properly
story
first
to
and
us.
second? All right.
Bryson was the first, Anderson was the second.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And all approved, just to make sure for the record.
No, they all denied.
No, they all approved.
Yes, Miss Jessica, go ahead, please, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
So like the Pathways and Trails Plan and the Riverfront and Downtown Master Plan that the city adopted a few years ago, they were adopted by reference into the comprehensive plan as part of those respective elements of the comp plan. This would be an adoption by reference into the community facilities element of the comprehensive plan. The plan was prepared with input from community stakeholders via a steering committee that was appointed by and included city officials to help guide future improvements to the city's parks, open spaces, and recreational facilities. The plan provides a vision for Conway's Park and Recreation Department for the next 10 years. Adoption of the Conway Parks and Recreation Master Plan by reference into the comp plan ensures that the city's long-range documents are consistent and that future decisions are supported by a clear vision for parks and recreation in Conway. Council approved first reading on the plan at their August 18th meeting. This item is scheduled as a public hearing, and I'll be happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
Okay, the board's okay, we'll open it up for a public hearing and get that over with.
I agree.
Not seeing anybody else but us in the room, I will motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Any discussion from the board?
So we're just, our job here is just to approve that this goes into the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, and again, it's a plan, right? So it's not ordinance or law or anything, but it's just to help guide the city's future and growth when it comes to, future facilities for parks and recreation or improvements to current parks and recreation that the city has. And this would be part of the comp plan, so that way when we are considering annexations or rezonings, things of that nature, the population, you got the population element, the housing element, all of those things kind of work in sync with each other, and it kind of helps the city know not only what's needed, but where it's needed to. So when we do make land use decisions, when Planning Commission considers land use decisions, that they have this in mind when they are, making those recommendations.
This is a substantial document.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it is well done. It is pictures and, I was a little overwhelmed at the amount of work that went into this plan, and it was a lot to digest. Some of it I read twice. I'm still working on getting to all of it.
This particular plan, there was a third party that is responsible
Okay.
for this plan.
I mean,
Yes.
it was wildly comprehensive, but I can honestly say I've not digested all of it. So, but I don't really know what our role is. We're not approving all the pages of this. We're approving. What are we doing?
You're approving its adoption and as by reference into the comprehensive plan. So basically, you're amending the comprehensive plan, and that, Planning Commission is charged with that.
And the draft that's written on this, we'll
Yes.
take that label off of it after we
It
put
would be
it.
final, yes.
So we're going to adopt a resolution tonight that the Planning Commission is approving the Parks and Rec comprehensive plan, and the Parks and Rec plan, and putting it into our comprehensive plan for the city of Conway, or for city council to adopt at the next meeting, is what we're doing this evening. So in the motion, we'll have to go through and adopt, or in the motion, we'll have to go through and approve my signing of the resolution to council that the Planning Commission did approve the plan.
And then it's still city council will still
Make the final
make
approval.
their final. So
Mhm.
we're, okay, perfect.
Any further discussion? Anybody have any other questions for Jessica?
I thought it was a pretty eye-opening document. I never realized just how much we were lacking in all of our parks. It's they're all kind of centralized in one little strip if you zoom out and look at it on a macro scale.
Yeah.
And some of the developments that are proposed will help address some of those issues as well.
But I mean, for us being a smaller community, we do offer quite a bit,
Yeah, we do.
quite a bit.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, and we can already see that there are some red areas that are going to quickly turn green with the Busby region and some of the trailheads that are coming through in the back of some of these developments. I think that'll be. I was also shocked that only 12% of Conway's residents live within a 10-minute walking distance to a park, and I've always felt that Conway is great with parks. Like we have parks seemingly everywhere, but only 12% of our population can walk to a park. And I'm glad we're addressing that in this master plan, that we're trying to get parks more accessible, and I think it's just a great direction for us to go.
And
I
keep
think a
in
big
mind
part
that
of
you
that is
guys,
division of the
sorry.
highway. No, I'm sorry. The big part of that is the division of the two highways that cut us in half, basically.
Yeah.
Well, in thirds, really.
And you guys will be working on a brand-new comprehensive plan. I'm hoping in the next few months, we can go ahead and kick that off. And the community facilities elements will help address some of those issues too. So there might be some things that need to be updated by that time. There'll be lots of public meetings, and you'll get the opportunity to make recommendations as well.
When does my seat come open? Okay.
Not soon.
You got a while.
Is there an,
No, go ahead.
I'll make a
Motion.
motion to approve.
Make him. All right, we
yeah,
have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? All right, motion carries.
Would you like to grab?
Yes, please, I'm ready to turn over the gavel.
Do we have to elect her back?
No.
Hey, we had an election while you were gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got another term. Times 5.
Sure you did great. Okay, board input? Anybody?
Thank the
Thank
staff
you.
for all you do.
Yes,
Appreciate you.
we cannot do it without y'all.
Appreciate y'all.
When does Busby come up about, like, when do we turn that into a park?
I don't know. Are you talking about the, what, are you talking about the site on Lake Busby, or are you talking about?
That side on Lake Busby, that's like the, like where the pond is and the walking trail. And
Well, Lake Busby itself, I think, is just gonna be left in its natural state. I know there's not like any plans to develop anything
Oh, I
on
didn't-
Lake Busby. Are you just talking about like the walking, like any
Right, the
parks
walking
around it?
area, is that, I mean, is there a plan to bring that in as a, here's what, I'm staking this, but like, I run out there all the time, and the, power company, or whoever owned it prior, I don't even know, the Santee,
Mhm.
Santee
Santee
Cooper,
Cooper.
yeah,
they would mow out there.
I gotcha.
And they would keep the road, the access road that goes all the way to the back, they'd have it mowed, so, you know.
I can look
Runners could
into
run.
that. I can look into that for
And
you.
I don't know if it's you know, if that's a facilities question.
It very well may be.
Be-
I can look, and I'll look into that. And if it's not, it might be something that would be worth discussing when we do rewrite the comprehensive plan.
So, that was one question.
Thank you to the board for putting up with my endless questions.
Um,
I appreciate y'all.
I second that.
I'm
Thank you,
glad
the
it
board,
wasn't
for
just,
putting up.
I'm glad it wasn't me this time.
All right, do we have any staff input?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain why this is this is being deferred. This actually came up as a result of the mayor wanting us to look at some uses that are, you know, you have highway commercial right next to residential. And trying to figure out, you know, some of those uses, should they be put in other zoning districts? And then you also have uses like vape shops that have been a concern. Cash advance or payday loan places that tend to locate, you know, they're predatory lending agencies, and they tend to locate in the most vulnerable areas of our community. So trying to determine if maybe those need to be pushed to, you know, a more restrictive district, so that way we don't see vape shops on every corner. And then also looking at, in sync with this or in conjunction with this, adopting what's called a special exception process, which would be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So for certain uses, it could be some places a bed and breakfast. I know the county, any place that wants to have on-premise consumption of alcohol has to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm not recommending that particular item, but there might be other things or other uses that we don't currently have that maybe would work best through a special exception process. And we kind of want to bring that together with this amendment and bring that before you as one amendment. So that's why there's just been a lot of moving parts with this particular amendment.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, see everybody on November 6th, 5:30 sharp.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting for what, the city of Halloween has been adjourned?
I'll second. All those in favor?
Amen.
Aye.